doesn't happen very often. We have a British driver, Jenson Button, on pole, hoping to put one over on Ferrari in their own backyard as well. Let's join Martin Brundle and say a very good afternoon to James. James Allen.
Thank you very much, Jim. Welcome, everybody. So, for the first time this season, Michael Schumacher has someone in front of him. And it's Jenson Button, who put in surely one of the best single-lap qualifying efforts we've seen so far. And it's set us up for what should be a very interesting race, particularly the first phase of it. We've had a heavy rainstorm overnight here in Imola. It's washed all the rubber off the track, and we've seen throughout this season that Michael Schumacher there in the Ferrari on his Bridgestone tyres on a green track tends to be much, much faster than the Michelin cars. So absolutely critical for Jenson Button that he stays ahead of Michael Schumacher through to the first round of pit stops, which we're expecting to be around about lap 8 to lap 11 here this afternoon. 62 lap Grand Prix, a 3-mile track here at Imola. Every corner a classic name, and there a study in concentration. 24-year-old Jenson Button in just his 70th Grand Prix start, and he's finally hit the jackpot. Team boss Dave Richards there down in the pit lane, hoping to have a word with him in a moment as well, just to see how his last-minute nerves are going. Martin, it's going to be tough, but last night after his qualifying effort, Jenson saying, "I'm not afraid of Michael Schumacher." We know that Schumacher has a superior race pace, but tactics and heart really are going to come into it today, aren't they?
Yes, I think Jenson's found a way just to stay level and balanced. He seemed so relaxed when I was talking to him down on the grid, without being too laid back, as it were. And he does seem to have a new level of maturity and approach. I think he's getting a lot of support in this team from David Richards and the rest of the clan there. And, you know, they're in life, some people need a carrot and others need a stick. Very few need a stick in my experience. Everybody needs a bit of a carrot and a lot of support and an arm around your shoulder from time to time. And you do it together in this game in terms of, you know, what you achieve, your success and your failure. And right now, Jenson has just got it all around him and getting the job done himself too.
Well, listening to us is the team principal of BAR Honda, David Richards. David, I know you've had an awful lot of success in your career, but I bet you've got a few butterflies now. Pole position for the first time for your team with Jenson. How are you feeling?
It's an exciting time for the team, for everybody involved, not just Jenson. But, you know, you have to think that this is the first of many opportunities like this, so hopefully that pressure isn't going to come to bear as a result.
Is Jenson calm? Martin had a quick word with him about 10 minutes ago on the grid, but any last-minute words on the radio from you to him?
No, we talked at lunch. We sat down and had a talk about it, and, you know, there's no reason to think that in 2 weeks' time in Barcelona he can't repeat this. Therefore, there's no reason to think this is all or bust. So, no, he's very calm about it. He's just another day at the office.
But I've talked to some of your mechanics, and I know that being ahead of Ferrari on their home soil was something that was very special to them after qualifying yesterday. That must be a big part of it for you.
Oh, I think it is. Here in Italy, the atmosphere, and anyone who's here listening and just feeling the atmosphere with all the Tifosi here, the Italian Ferrari fans, and see a BAR Honda at the front of the grid, that's very special.
You got a few quid riding on it today?
Unfortunately not, no. I put my money on the first race of the season. I won't be gambling again.
Oh, well, thanks for joining us, David, and best of luck to you this afternoon. There's Rubens Barrichello. Eyes closed, focusing, visualising the start procedure, the run down to Tamburello, the first corner here on this Imola track, modified after the death 10 years ago of Ayrton Senna. It's a chicane now instead of a flat-out, scary, let's face it, left-hander, which is what it used to be. And they'll be approaching that right about 130 miles an hour off the start line. There then, the skyline of Imola, about half an hour outside the city of Bologna in northern Italy. A favourite venue of a lot of people in Formula One, and certainly a well-maintained track.
Yes, ironically, putting a chicane in has helped this racetrack because, as you say, James, it was just scary. No driver skill involved in Tamburello before. And a BAR mechanic on the grid there. Let's hope he wasn't in the zone when they're not allowed to be on the grid. I think he was clear. It's about 15 seconds they all have to be away from the car, so that was fine. But yeah, you just used to sit there and hope nothing happened. Now it's quite a challenge to drive. So this track, as ever, everybody loves driving here. It's a wonderful, wonderful racetrack. It needs a bit of a tidy up. It'd be such a shame if this is the final San Marino Grand Prix here in Imola.
Certainly would. Seems like a long hole, doesn't it? Just waiting for this parade lap to start. There we go. Jenson Button lays some thick layer tracks of rubber on his start position. Now in the support races that we've seen here in the last couple of days, Formula 3000, which you can see next Sunday on Speed Sunday here on ITV1, and also the Porsche Super Cup race. Martin, the guys starting from the pit wall side where Michael Schumacher is starting from, they all had terrible getaways. Now, I know it's rain and washed the rubber off the track, but it still seems to be the dirtier side is not giving quite the grip, which must be a bit of a boost for Jenson Button.
Yes, I think when there used to be a warm-up, that would be even more significant. But as you say, some of the advantage has been washed away with no significant running today. But traditionally here, the left-hand side of the grid has always been better over all the years we've raced here. And also, it's a left sweeper where you do not need to be on the right-hand side of the road, so you can just stay left. So you've got a grippier side of the track. You've got a straighter run down to Tamburello. It is an advantage, no doubt about it, providing they get their launch control sorted out. But haven't really noticed the BAR being particularly good or actually having a problem away from the start. The Ferraris have been starting well this year, but they should all get away pretty well at the front. Be interesting to see just how pacey the Williams are too.
Yes, I think you need to watch out for Juan Pablo Montoya, who was absolutely delighted to qualify in third place, and I wonder whether that means that perhaps he's carrying a little bit more fuel than the others. Certainly he feels he can get into the mix. He's starting on the clean side of the track. Watch out for him having a bit of a run at Michael into the first corner. We saw a Williams last year, Ralf Schumacher getting in front of Michael Schumacher on the run down to the first corner, so watch out for them. Also watch out for Fernando Alonso this afternoon. Renault had a slow start to the weekend, but Alonso is confident in his race car as well.
Well, I think what's important here for Jenson Button is he has led Grand Prix, albeit for short periods of time, but Indianapolis last year he was leading the Grand Prix, wasn't he? And this year too, at certain phases of the race, okay, given pit stops mostly, he has led the race, and that's one hurdle, one mental hurdle he's already cleared and put behind him. So I don't think he'll be too scared if he's got absolutely nobody in front of him heading down to the first chicane.
You see he's slowing down there. He doesn't want to arrive on the grid too soon and have to wait for a long time with a stationary car getting hotter and hotter before the rest of the field arrives. So showing a degree of maturity there, Jenson Button. It's been a while since he's been on pole in a race, back in 1999 when he was still a Formula 3 driver, and I guess it takes a while for it all to come back to you, and it's a very different game when you reach the Formula 1 level. Michael Schumacher there alongside him. His first pole position was back in 1994, and he won that Grand Prix. Can Button do the same as Michael Schumacher? The tension rising now as they come back to the grid.
Michael's smoking the rear tyres and then locking the fronts, trying to get brake temperature and rear tyre temperature. They'll peel off as late as they can onto that dirty side of the racetrack, and they should. Raikkonen there will be the last man to line up. This used to take about 45 seconds. Jean-Marie Balestre just beat up on us when he was president of the FIA to get it in under 30 seconds. That was with 26 cars. I still think they take too long to form up on the grid, and it's unfair on those sitting at the front of the grid for 3/4 of a minute with no air going through the radiators.
Okay then. Hold on to your seats. Kimi Raikkonen is at the back of the grid. He is now in position. Watch out for the red lights. When all 5 go off, we'll be racing. And Button versus Schumacher. Round 1 is go! Cracking start by Jenson Button. Montoya there, but Michael Schumacher cuts across him. Rubens Barrichello goes wide. Good start by Takuma Sato as well. 3 abreast into Tamburello. One of the McLarens has gone straight on it. Must be David Coulthard. And look at Montoya. He's really attacking Michael Schumacher as they go down towards Villeneuve. He wants through. He wants through. No, he can't get through. And that's McLaren without a front wing. And look at Montoya attacking Schumacher.
Coulthard then lost his front wing. This is perfect for Jenson Button. Schumacher and Montoya too busy watching each other. Schumacher pushes Montoya clean off the road. Now Ralph's having a go down the outside. It's too grassy and too wet there, so Ralph loses out to Takuma Sato. It was stupid trying to hang on to that once Montoya had covered his line. And great news then for Button, a comfortable lead, and it's taken the pressure off Michael Schumacher while Montoya has to recover.
What an explosive start to the Grand Prix. Incredible side-by-side action. The two Williams is there on the grass, but Schumacher and Montoya, we need to see that again. That was incredible going through the Tosa corner.
Well, Montoya tried to go around the outside, and Michael just clean took the racing line and ran him off the road. I don't think it was really anything bad on Michael's part. In fact, I'm comfortable it wasn't. Just that Montoya didn't really have enough space to pull the move off, and Ralph thought he'd take advantage of it. Look at the lead that Button has going over the line then. It is 2.7 seconds, perfect at this stage. But now, unfortunately, Michael can get into his stride. He'll be dragging Montoya along with him. This is where Jensen needs to push as hard as he can and get this gap built up.
Yes, well, we said before that the Bridgestone tyres are very, very strong in the early phase of the Grand Prix. Michelin's take a little while to come through. Button has to be on top of this. There's so much to think about as the McLaren of David Coulthard comes into the pits. So teammate Raikkonen, where's he at the moment? He's in 15th place, having started 20th. And another sorry weekend for the McLaren team, isn't it? Best hope for points today was Coulthard, and he's already dead last now.
So Jensen Button almost looking like he's on single lap qualifying at the moment. Where are the rest of them? And here we're going to see a replay of the start. Great start there from Jensen Button. A poor start from Montoya, but he recovers it. At the moment, he's racing the second Ferrari. Brakes later, and in comes Coulthard, braking too late. Hooked up with the back of the Renault of Jarno Trulli. Here's another shot then of the start. Everybody getting away. Ralph immediately looking for a way around his teammate. Had to get off the throttle, and that allowed Barrichello a chance. But Montoya covered his ground well, and there is Coulthard in the background, having connected with the back of the Renault. He locked his wheels up. Obviously got caught out in the concertina effect, and off he goes. Did he connect with the suspension? This is the view from Michael Schumacher's car of Jensen Button's perfect start.
Well, Michael Schumacher's taken half a second out of Jensen Button's lead. It's down to just 2.1 seconds, so he's going to be closing in on him soon, but maybe for the first stint he won't try and pass him. We will see. Certainly it's going to be a tactical game here this afternoon. Button leads, Michael Schumacher second, Montoya third, Sato is fourth, fifth is Ralf Schumacher, sixth is Rubens Barrichello, seventh is Jarno Trulli, eighth is Mark Webber, where he started for Jaguar, ninth Alonso. He slipped a few places on the grid. Down 3, in fact, and D'Amato is holding on in 10th place.
And here we are from on board Michael Schumacher's car then, and look, just nowhere for Montoya to be, but Michael was on the racing line. It was Montoya put himself in a position that made it very easy to bin him on the outside. And now Montoya covers his ground, and Ralph should have got out at that point. It wasn't going to happen with so much rain overnight. But look, Schumacher relentlessly closing in. He's 5/10ths faster on this lap than Jensen Button. He'll be behind him in 3 laps' time. Button hasn't got Schumacher's pace at this stage of the Grand Prix.
No, well, they do the long runs during the Friday practice and again on Saturday morning, and looking at the times through there, you could see that Button was lapping consistently in the sort of low 1:22s, that kind of range, but not able to break into the 1:21s. Michael Schumacher, though, was a good 0.6 of a second, sometimes almost a second faster. Now, of course, you don't know what the fuel loads were relative to each other. We still don't know how much fuel each of these two cars is carrying. We'll only find that out when they make their first pit stops. But clearly, the Ferrari has a faster race car. And as I said before, it will come down for Jensen Button to tactics, to tenacity, to heart, to character, how long he can keep Michael Schumacher behind him.
Now, has he responded? Michael Schumacher just 0.2 faster in the first sector, so Jensen has done his fastest first sector of the Grand Prix. We're only on lap 4, but he seems to be able to respond, although Michael's still closing in on him.
Well, in 4th place, we've got Takuma Sato, teammate to Jensen Button. He's had a good start to this Grand Prix, but he is holding up the cars behind him. He's lapping a couple of seconds a lap slower than this group. So what we've got is the front 3 breaking away. Button, Michael Schumacher and Montoya, they're all breaking away, and Montoya's 3 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. There he is, you can see in the back of your frame. Then we've got Sato holding up a big queue of cars behind him, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place. So 2 big scraps going on the track.
The gap is down to 0.9 of a second. This is Coulthard with a lock-up. He's trying to chase from now. Last place after the new front nose and a dismal afternoon. He was out of position on the grid yesterday with a small error into that last chicane. Popped him back a couple of tenths, cost him 5 places on the grid. Tripped over the Renault at the start, so not working well for Coulthard. Going okay for Jensen Button, but he can't. He has responded to a certain extent from the pressure, but he can't do enough to stop the relentless closing of Michael Schumacher. But Sato's got a nice little queue behind him, look.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. You've got Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, Jarno Trulli, Mark Webber and Fernando Alonso all in that queue there. all trying to find a way through. Pretty difficult track to overtake on, isn't it, Imola?
Well, to back that up, James, Kimi Räikkönen was 15th at the end of the first lap and is still 15th at the end of the fourth lap, not making any progress at all. Of course, they can fuel him differently, probably a bit heavier than the cars around him, but he's following Fisichella in the Sauber and has not been able to do anything about it.
Let me just explain the lap counter at the top there. It says 58/62. 62 lap Grand Prix and 58 to go. That's what it means. So we're working on lap 5 at the moment. You can count down the laps with us to this Grand Prix. And Jenson Button at the moment, well, his last lap, he's picked the pace up. A 21.6 for Jenson Button. Michael Schumacher, he matches Michael Schumacher's lap time for the first time, really, since the opening lap. So Button able to respond now. Those Michelin tyres have perhaps gone through that little dip phase. And let's see what Jenson's made of.
And that's impressive stuff from Button and Michael Schumacher. They're 1 second faster than Montoya, and he's best part of a second faster than anybody else. This pair, 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap faster than the rest of the field. Great pace up at the front, and Jenson, for the first time in the Grand Prix, posted a fractionally faster time, as you said, James, than Michael Schumacher. Very important. Button, Michael Schumacher, Montoya, Sato fourth, Ralf Schumacher 5th, Barrichello, Trulli, Webber, Alonso 9th, De Matter 10th.
Well, the $10 million question here this afternoon is when will these two men make their first pit stops? If Button comes in 2-3 laps earlier than Michael Schumacher, it will explain some of what happened yesterday in qualifying, but it won't explain it all. It was still a very, very good lap by Jenson Button. But if they come in on the same sort of lap, or even, dare I say it, Button comes in later, it's a real statement of intent. And you heard David Richards there before the start of this Grand Prix talking about, well, if it doesn't happen here, it'll happen in Spain. If it doesn't happen in Spain, it'll happen somewhere. The BAR team really are on a crest of a wave at the moment. They've got a lot of confidence in this car. Both drivers have confidence in it too, and I think that confidence is really showing in the way that Jenson Button is attacking this race in the early stages.
Yes, I think BAR have done a good job of trying to undo the lid of the pressure cooker. They've got to keep saying, hey, I mean, yesterday Jenson said on ITV, when he wasn't yet on pole position, third will do, third's great, I'd like to be first and all that, and that's, I think, how the only way they can approach it, to take away the enormous pressure on them, being the only people that can remotely challenge the Ferrari team at this time. And still they're over a second faster than Montoya, but crucially the gap down to just 0.7 of a second. But also in that, James, it's the turbulent air zone now. Michael Schumacher just getting into the turbulent air coming off the back of that BAR. The air has worked hard to force the car into the ground, to give him grip, and it's pretty angry and swirling around by the time it leaves the rear wing, and Michael's got to drive through it.
This is on board with Michael Schumacher. That chicane they just went through is where Michael made his mistake yesterday in qualifying, and Jenson Button was able to get the advantage. This is the part of the lap where Jenson was quicker anyway, though, the last 2 corners. We saw last year in the Grand Prix that Ralf Schumacher led the first stint. Michael Schumacher sat in second place waiting to see what would happen, and he passed him really through the first pit stop sequence. Will he do the same thing again this year? Will he play a patient game in this first stint and then try and rely on passing through the pit stops? If it comes down to a pit stop race, that really will be a challenge for the BAR mechanics.
Well, we've seen the BAR very strong across the curbs. At the moment, Jenson's giving them quite a lot of respect. In the pits, De Matter and Massa from 10th and 11th. The first ones to blink then, the first to need fuel this afternoon in this 3-stop race.
Yeah, this is lap 8, as I said, any time between now and around lap 11. Anyone goes longer than that has done an impressive job in qualifying. Felipe Massa, you can see there in the pit lane, his 23rd birthday today. And that is Giorgio Pantano, I believe, retiring from the Grand Prix. He's stopped out in the middle of the circuit somewhere, so we've got a yellow flag in the central part of the lap. Here's the battle between Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. No love lost between those two. Williams BMW driver and the Ferrari Rubens Barrichello. And you have to say also, Martin, this gap that's opening up behind Michael Schumacher to Montoya and then a big gap back to Sato is very good news anyway for Jenson Button in terms of the very least he could expect to get out of this afternoon is second place, but he wants the win.
Absolutely right, and there goes Pantano. Was he pulling off because he'd got a problem, or did he get it wrong on the way down in? I think he just got it wrong on the way down into Acqua Minerale, as we watch Fisichella bouncing across the grass at the last chicane. Right, that's 2 consecutive laps then. 2 consecutive laps that Button has been faster than Michael Schumacher. Montoya pits early from third, so they didn't have more fuel on board. Montoya in then at the end of lap 8. The leaders are on lap 9. The Jaguar of Webber comes in and very nearly connects with Montoya as he departs the pits.
Well, that's very interesting because obviously this pit lane here at Imola is quite narrow, 80 kilometres an hour speed limit. It's normally 100 at most venues we go to, and we've already seen some teams being fined for releasing their driver out into the path of another car. Now that was pretty close, it looked to me, with the Jaguar coming down there, so interesting to see if there's any sanction taken against the Williams team as a result of that, because that was close.
Sato up to third then with Montoya's pit stop, so Button leads by 1 second now from Sato third, Ralf Schumacher fourth, Barrichello up to fifth, Trulli sixth, Alonso seventh. Webber had pitted, so Panis will be into the top 10 in the Toyota. There is the long line then behind Sato, and Sato's stopped out on the racetrack somewhere, we're seeing. Sato as Button pits then. Button in the pits from the lead at the end of lap 9. His pit is quite a long way down there. And Ted is there.
Yes, I am. We also think Sato has stopped somewhere. We'll keep you updated, though. Crucial pit stop here for BAR. It's amazing. They did have the pace. They were quicker than Williams. It's a good pit stop. It's a long pit stop. Long lot of fuel there. 9.7.
Yeah, Alistair Gibson, chief mechanic of BAR, lifts up the lollipop. Jenson Button attacks the throttle and goes out onto the racetrack. Michael Schumacher leads at Imola. 5 times a winner here. Can he make it 6? His brother Ralph has made a pit stop too, so Williams didn't carry much fuel in qualifying yesterday, so their pace wasn't that special. How many more laps worth of fuel has Michael Schumacher got? That's the big question now.
Schumacher's responded. He's done the fastest first sector by a mile. He's smashed that in the Grand Prix. They're already lapping at record pace anyway, as Button was being harried by Michael Schumacher in the first stage of this Grand Prix. But now Michael's about to set a massively quick lap while his teammate was pitting, while his contender was pitting, I should say.
Yeah, Takuma Sato, we're now being told by the race computer, has not stopped out on the racetrack. He's 16 seconds behind race leader Michael Schumacher, and that gaggle of cars behind him is going to be critical, because depending on how much longer Schumacher goes on for, he's going through to do another lap. Big oversteer there on the exit of the chicane, but Schumacher may well join into that group, that big queue behind Takuma Sato, so that could be difficult for Michael.
Michael Schumacher's just done a time that would put him third on the grid in qualifying, a 1:20.4. So this will easily leapfrog him past Jenson Button because he's travelling very quickly. There then is Sato pitting. What must have happened is his sender didn't register at one of the sector points, so they thought he'd stop. After a while, it gives you a stop. Sato is in the race. Away goes Barrichello.
Critical for Barrichello to get in front of Sato here on the stop. He's done it. That's very important for Rubens Barrichello's race. It's bad news for Jenson Button's race, because it means that Barrichello is in front of his teammate Sato and can challenge. But look at that, Barrichello rejoins behind Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, he was behind him in the first stages too, so it didn't get him past Ralf, but as you say, James, importantly, it's got him past Sato. Michael Schumacher is on yet another stonking lap. So why will this leapfrog him? Well, because also Jenson had a very long stop. As Ted said down there, he put a lot of fuel in the car. Will Michael pit at the end of this lap? It's lap 11, and he is heading towards the pit lane now. Does he rocket straight down that pit lane? Indeed he does. Schumacher pits from the lead at the end of lap 11.
And he comes. It's got a slight advantage. You can see he drove straight into his pit box there. One of the advantages of being a world champion team, you have the first box in the pit lane, a straighter line in than Jenson Button had. Longish stop too, 7.8 on the fuel. And it looks like Michael Schumacher should rejoin in front of Jenson Button. Where is Button as Schumacher goes slowly down the pit lane? There he is, I believe. And no, that's a Renault, so Button's well behind. And the extra fuel that Ted spotted going in has accounted for the difference. So Michael Schumacher retains his lead here at Imola. There is Jarno Trulli behind him. He's in real-time second place. He hasn't yet made a pit stop, so that is position for Jarno Trulli. And behind him on the racetrack, there you are, is Jenson Button.
Yes, so just to remind you how Button fell away from the lead, it is because Michael Schumacher put in 2 record laps after Jenson's stop, and Michael's stop was 7.8, Jenson's was 9.5 thereabouts, and that has given him track position, and quite a lot too. So we'll have to wait and see how Jensen at the moment is third, but Jarno Trulli has not pitted. So Michael Schumacher leads from Trulli at the moment. Alonso's in there too. And although he has just pitted, Button, Montoya, Ralf Schumacher, Barrichello, Sato, Fisichella, Raikkonen 10th at the moment.
Of the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. Michael Schumacher leads Jenson Button by 6.1 seconds. We think Button put more fuel into his car at the first round of pit stops, but anyway, Michael Schumacher's 2 record laps whilst Button was in the pits and coming out of them is what's made the difference here this afternoon. Button having led the first 9 laps of this Grand Prix. They're leaving the rest behind this afternoon. Juan Montoya is in 3rd place for BMW Williams, then Jarno Trulli 4th, Ralf Schumacher 5th, and 6th is Rubens Barrichello. This is the battle you're looking for at now. On board there with Barrichello and really having a heck of a scrap with Ralf Schumacher. They've been side by side with each other at times this afternoon. Barrichello very anxious to get past Ralf Schumacher. And you can see that Alonso there also in the Renault is behind. But you have to say Jarno Trulli quietly in his own way is doing a very good job this afternoon, isn't he? Up into 4th place, having qualified well back from that.
Indeed, he is. Michael Schumacher from Button. Montoya remains over 10 seconds behind Button then. I wonder if they've changed to a 2-stopper for Jensen. That's a lot of fuel they put on board, and at the moment he's nowhere near Michael Schumacher's pace. So that means he's got about, what, 26, 27 seconds in his pocket over Michael if he doesn't have to stop, if he only stops 1 more time instead of 2. So we'll keep an eye on that. Have BAR changed the strategy? But at the moment, Button in a comfortable but fading second. Schumacher's lead, 7.6 seconds.
Back on board with Rubens Barrichello. This battle has been concertinaing. Sometimes they're all over each other, sometimes Ralf is able to pull out, but one senses that the Ferrari certainly is a quicker car around here. In the hands of Michael Schumacher, it's a quicker car than anything else, but
see, it shows you how critical, exactly what he's saying. I mean, we know Rubens' guy is theoretically as fast as Michael's. He didn't qualify as well, got hooked up in some traffic. He's 28 seconds behind his teammate on lap 16, and that's what it costs you when you start getting mixed up on a part of the racetrack you shouldn't be on.
Very interesting, isn't it? It shows you what happens when you don't qualify all that brilliantly. because Rubens Barrichello qualifying 4th. Not too bad, but he got caught up in the melee, and he's now in this group in 6th place. But Jarno Trulli, I was saying before, he started this Grand Prix in 9th place, and by staying out a bit longer on the first stint, as he did, he was one of the last drivers to come in for his pit stop, he was able to leapfrog the battle and get himself up into 4th place. So we've seen a mixture of strategies this afternoon on the first stint, and Trulli definitely, and Michael Schumacher, both showing that carrying a bit more fuel in qualifying was the smart ticket this weekend.
Yes, indeed. Fisichella 9th, Raikkonen 10th have yet to stop. So they're doing a good job, you have to say. There, Coulthard's made his way through the field a bit from his nose change, but stuck in 17th behind the Jaguar of Klein, and therefore they're lapping significantly off the pace. So Coulthard's rapid progress has suddenly come to a grinding halt.
Well, this weekend, as you know, we're meeting the team with Minardi. I'm delighted to say Paul Stoddard from the Minardi team is joining us from the pit wall. How's it going, Paul?
James, interesting old race here. I see Jensen's now behind Michael, but he's still doing a pretty good job, and most of the cars are still in it.
How about your drivers? 18th and 19th at the moment. Baumgartner ahead of Bruni.
Yeah, both gone through their pit stops. Really, all we can do now is just watch and wait and see what happens. Hope for a few little mistakes here and there, and hopefully we can maybe get in the top 10.
It's interesting, we had a lot of rain last night, Paul, obviously washed a lot of the rubber away from the track. I imagine the opening stint must have been pretty hard on the tyres. What did the drivers say?
Yeah, both sets of our tyres are actually okay. I think that's perhaps because everybody else is getting the rubber down, James. But having said that, we had an awful lot of rain last night, and I think anybody that gets offline is going to find themselves in trouble very quickly.
All right, thanks very much for talking to us, Paul. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Here we go then, lap 17. Michael Schumacher leading Jenson Button now. He's pulled that lead out. Took a second out of Button on that last lap to just under 10 seconds now. Montoya 3rd, Trulli 4th, Ralf Schumacher 5th. Then this man, Rubens Barrichello, in 6th place, and 7th, Alonso. Not as quick this afternoon as we thought he was going to be, Martin. Or certainly not as quick as he thought he was going to be.
No, not at all. The two Williams really are struggling on pace. We've got Montoya just did a lap 2.3 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher, and is on another one that's equally as slow. So Montoya very slow in 3rd place, falling away from Button, and Ralf Schumacher falling away from Jarno Trulli too. So the Williams, I think well, certainly I thought they were looking pretty handy on the grid, but they just have not shown the pace we were expecting.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, this was the first weekend, Patrick Head was making a big point of this yesterday, the first weekend that Ralf Schumacher's been out-qualified here at Imola by his teammate Juan Montoya, and Patrick thought that was pretty significant because Imola's always been a very strong Ralf Schumacher circuit. It's now 4-0 in qualifying to Montoya over Ralf Schumacher. What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I think he's just really, Ralph's head's not where it needs to be. I think he's thinking about other things next year, all sorts of pressures, but no problems like that for his brother Michael Schumacher, who on lap 18 leads by 10.8 seconds from Jenson Button, and falling away behind them, some 23 seconds behind Michael now, is Montoya in 3rd place.
20 of the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you, describing Jenson Button. Early laps of this Grand Prix led Michael Schumacher, but until lap 9, and then Schumacher was able to pass him through the pit stop sequence. We think that Jenson Button took on a bit more fuel than Michael Schumacher. Probably won't make that much of a difference because he's 12 seconds behind Schumacher at the moment, but it will make a big difference, I think, to Button's race effort generally. Also helping that is the fact that nobody else is really on their pace. Montoya is 26 seconds behind Schumacher in 3rd place. Then Jarno Trulli, Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, Alonso are all some way back as well. So Button looking comfortable at the moment in 2nd place. The real interest in this Grand Prix as the McLaren of David Coulthard comes in. He knocked his front wing off at the start of this race, and that's a routine stop, I think, for Coulthard. But the big interest now is Jarno Trulli in 4th place, who made a tactical pit stop, Martin. We think he took on a short amount of fuel, a small amount of fuel, in order to get back out ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, who have been fighting each other cat and dog. And so through the middle part of this Grand Prix, that scrap is definitely worth keeping an eye on. Can Trulli stay ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello?
If Button's got to stop one less time than Michael Schumacher, and of course they've still got the option to change Michael's strategy at some point in the next fill-up, but if he has got one less stop, he's still in the hunt here. Michael's pace is pretty sensational. Schumacher and Button class the field by a country mile. I think there are 2 drivers and cars that are hooked up on this green track because of the heavy rain overnight, and the rest of them are nowhere in terms of pace. So those 2 are really on it and just pulling away from the rest of the field. But Button not out of this yet.
He certainly isn't, and Louise Goodman is talking to his father, John, down in the pits. And how's he looking? How are those hands shaking?
They're shaking a fair amount, James, I have to say. He's just having a quick fag to steady his nerves as well. John, Jenson may have lost the lead in the pit stops, but he's still keeping up a pretty cracking pace, isn't he?
Yeah, it's really funny. He's lying in 2nd place, and I feel a little bit disappointed. How crazy.
What do you think of that start?
Well, the start was absolutely brilliant, and to hold on with that pressure for the first run, really pleased, no mistakes.
We've just been speculating. I mean, it took a long time in that pit stop, taking a lot of fuel on board. What's going on with the strategy there? Is there anything you can tell us?
Well, it's a simple answer. I haven't got the faintest idea.
I thought you might say that, John. All right, we'll catch up with you again later if that's all right.
Yeah, fine. Cheers.
Yeah, the team would be busy trying to work out what Ferrari are doing rather than spending a lot of time updating John on what they're doing on the fuel strategy. But what a brilliant supporter he's been from the days when he used to fix Jenson's car. This must seem like an amazing dream come true. Raikkonen finally pits for the first time. He was in 9th place, started with a heavy fuel load from the very back of the grid. This is the man many tipped to be world champion this year. Fuel hose looked a bit slow coming off there, looked like they were stuck a bit, but he's currently pointless, and in today's race he's not in the point scoring chance either at the moment, but I think he's got a good chance of a 6th, 7th or 8th later on. But it's amazing if that's what McLaren are aiming at the moment.
Yeah, they say they've made big improvements here this weekend. They perhaps didn't show so much in qualifying yesterday. Raikkonen having to do an engine change, which meant he didn't really set a time in the 2nd qualifying session, the one that counted. So starting this afternoon from the back of the grid. David Coulthard was in that group that was 6 cars separated by 0.2 of a second, and he made a mistake in qualifying in the final chicane. But for that, could have been starting perhaps 5th or 6th on the grid, and people would have been saying, oh, well, McLaren maybe are making some progress. They certainly say that they are. They're starting to dial out the problems with this car. They're starting to make it more drivable, give the confidence back to the drivers, but still a big mountain to climb to get on terms with this man and his machine. Michael Schumacher, clean sweep so far in 2004, 3 wins from 3 Grand Prix, and he's looking fairly comfortable at the moment. But as Martin says, don't count Jenson Button out.
Ted is with Mark Webber.
Well, I'm not with Mark Webber. I've got bad news about Mark Webber, I'm afraid. I've been into Jaguar and he has got an engine problem. Apparently it's a problem with 2 cylinders of that Cosworth V10. They don't know if it's terminal. They're keeping him out, see what happens, but I fear it might be.
Yep, he would have been doing very well to be with him, Mark, because he's 10th at the moment, but that's bad news, and he is travelling quite slowly. He's back in the 126s, the leader's pace is 121, so Webber clearly ailing with something, as Ted reports.
Yes, as Martin said, the leader, Michael Schumacher, on lap 24 here, out of 62. lapping in the low 1:21 range. Jenson Button, his nearest rival, is lapping a second slower, 1:22 flat. That last lap for Jenson Button, who's now 14 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. And well, the pace of Michael Schumacher was evident throughout practice. It really is quite extraordinary, and also extraordinary is how Rubens Barrichello can't match it. He's stuck behind Ralf Schumacher, as he has been for most of the last few laps, and a frustrating afternoon for him.
I think what's significant there, James, is that all three of them are beginning to catch Jarno Trulli, the fourth place man. Between the four of them now, just 3 seconds separate the lot of them. So Trulli will come under pressure soon. The two Toyotas then are running 11th and 12th. Have they just, yes, just lapping somebody there. So Toyota in 11 and 12, Damata Panis. But again, lapping woefully slowly.
So this is lap 24. We're expecting the cars to come in for their second fuel stops around about lap 27 to 30, that kind of range. In comes Toyota. They were the first in last time, weren't they? Cristiano Damata from 10th place came in last time. He's currently running in 11th on this second stint, and he comes in for his second stop. More mechanics beginning to emerge into the pit lane as well. Well, we've got an email question from Katie Smith in London saying, I've heard that McLaren will be introducing a new car this year. Is it true? As Gianmaria Bruni just comes in very slowly and unexpectedly to the Minardi garage. Well, yes, you're right, Katie. We have heard that McLaren will be bringing out a 19B, as they call it, a B-spec version of this car. And certainly from the driver's point of view, it can't come soon enough. Trying to sort out some of the technical glitches that they have early season with their car. So, yes, Katie, we will be seeing it. And I think it'll have to come by the summer, won't it? July, I think they're talking about. If it's going to make a meaningful impact on the season, they're talking about running it in July.
Michael Schumacher now 16 seconds clear. BR didn't test here earlier in the season, so they wouldn't have been here since the Grand Prix last year. And is this a replay, or I think it's live? He's back in again, so whatever his problem was, they obviously sent him round and then let him back in again, so he's got a problem of some kind. But Button then really not so used to the track and conditions in the 2004 spec cars as Michael Schumacher, and it's really showing up at the moment. 16 seconds adrift at the moment.
Certainly, as you can see now, the car's starting to come in for their fuel stops. That's Felipe Massa, the birthday boy. He's back out again. He was running in 9th place. He's the only one of the Sauber drivers this season to have scored a point. Teammate Fisichella hasn't got off the mark yet. And he's in contention again here this afternoon for another one. Michael Schumacher then into lap traffic once again, going for the second time past the Minardi of Jolt Baumgartner. And coming up behind Massa and Raikkonen. Raikkonen in 12th place. Massa's dropped down as a result of his fuel stop. That's Fisichella, in fact, behind him, sorry. So that's the battle for 12th place, as in comes Montoya from 3rd.
Montoya, one of the early stoppers for the first round, and away he goes. So Montoya then slightly out of sync with the race leaders too by stopping a little bit earlier, lap or two earlier. Schumacher's lead now 17.6 seconds, and we're starting to get towards that zone, James, where, and I'm pretty sure Jenson, we know he's much heavier on fuel, and I'm pretty sure they're swapping it to a 2, whether they'll prove to regret that. But Michael's getting to that stage where he's got a pit stop in his pocket spare in terms of his lead.
Yeah, you need about 21 seconds here to make a pit stop and rejoin in front of the car that you were racing behind. So he's at the moment got 17.5 seconds. Look at Raikkonen though.
That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt, James. Having to pull over to let Michael Schumacher lap him. That is not what he expected to be doing in 2004. And that's going to spoil his afternoon completely. Out of sync on pit stops, of course. Button has pitted then. What's that all about? Maybe he just had a poor pit stop, because that's not carrying a lot of fuel. Where did his race pace go to then? Because Michael just left him for dead. That is a great surprise to me. Ted.
Well, that is strange. This time they've put equally amount of fuel, 8.4. You've got to think maybe the Honda engine is especially thirsty at this race, but I don't see any form for that in previous races, Martin.
No, that is strange, because, you know, the long pit stop, didn't appear to be any problems, and then the fall away of the pace all indicated he was carrying a lot more fuel, but sadly he was not.
No, it's interesting. I wonder whether Jensen wasn't particularly happy with the set of tyres he had on in the second stint there. Maybe that was part of the problem, and we don't know how much fuel he put in at the first round of pit stops. It looked like a similar amount going in this time, but certainly to pit on lap 27, halfway, not even halfway in this 62-lap Grand Prix, would indicate that he definitely does have to stop again this afternoon, as does Michael Schumacher. Schumacher in the pits now, here he is.
From the lead then, the end of lap 28, Michael Schumacher for the second scheduled stop of the afternoon, and that looked all pretty seamless as ever from the Italian team. Just 50 miles an hour limit down this very narrow pit lane. Nail it now, and away he goes, but he doesn't have to panic too much. Nobody's anywhere near him.
It's amazing, isn't it? The reliability of this Ferrari, absolutely astonishing. Schumacher has gone an entire season without retiring from a Grand Prix. 16 consecutive points finishes going back to the third round of last season's championship. Remember, he crashed in Brazil. That was the last time he retired from a race.
Yes, and the last time he retired from a race with a mechanical failure 41 races ago. Best part of 12,000 kilometres of racing, that is. That's a third of the way around the world that Ferrari's been without breaking down in a Grand Prix. When he went off last year, it was his own fault, wasn't it, on the rain in turn 3 in Brazil. They have supreme reliability.
It's been interesting. You have to say that a lot of the cars do. I mean, McLaren have had a number of failures this season. Four retirements from 6 starts from McLaren, and 3 of them for Kimi Raikkonen. But in general, all of the cars, Martin, have been pretty reliable. We've seen 4 cars retiring each Grand Prix. I remember a few seasons ago, you'd quite often see maybe only 12 or 13 finishes quite often. So everybody has upped their game, like Ferrari has to on the reliability stakes.
Sadly, not Gianmaria Bruni's car, though. Louise is with him.
Yeah, we saw Bruni's car putting up quite slowly into its pit stop position. He's got a problem with the brakes. Basically, what's happening is they're locking up every time he's going into the corner. He says it's like trying to drive a go-kart. He keeps getting sideways. The team are having a look at the telemetry to see if there's anything that they can fix. But in fact, Bruni, just as I say that, Bruni's just got out of the car in front of me, so it looks like it could be terminal.
Bad news then for our featured team here at the San Marino Grand Prix. Jenson Button putting a spurt on that. They're now just done his fastest lap of the race despite a tank of gas, so clearly he's happier on this set of tyres as it's Williams v Ferrari in the pit lane.
It's a pit lane race. You can see the tension in the mechanics. They release Barrichello into the path of the BAR of Takuma Sato, I believe that is. And look at that, Ralf Schumacher stays in front of Rubens Barrichello, and that will frustrate Barrichello no end.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be classed as releasing your man into the path of another. If it isn't, it was mighty close to it. That's a marginal call there. But what do they suppose? The lollipop man has to let him go. He can't start second-guessing how quickly Barrichello will cover that little bit of distance. If he stutters, if he spins his wheels too much, whatever, they have to release him. That's fair enough. The lollipop went up and Rubens was barely out of his garage. For me, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's coming out in front of Sato coming down the pit lane. That was not quite so close. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay as well. So I agree with you, Martin. That was a pretty good call, but those judgments are very finely balanced, aren't they? We saw a fine in Bahrain, didn't we? One of the teams got fined, Ferrari, I believe it was, for the very same thing. It's a new rule, part of the safety, increasing the safety in Formula One, because I've worked in those pit lanes for 8 years and I know how narrow they are, and when these cars come down there at 50 odd miles an hour, it might sound slow compared to racing speeds, but it's very quick when you're a stationary person.
Ted has some news on BAR.
Yeah, but into BAR, the riddle continues. There were no problems with the pit stops. The tyres were okay. Jenson hasn't complained about them going off. This place isn't very hard on tyres anyway. I actually looked at the tyres that came off his last stop. They were fine, no blisters. The wear was good. So you can only assume that they've got very high fuel consumption from that Honda engine. It is a lot more powerful than it was last year, of course, so maybe that's just it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it's all about fuel consumption. I really would, that it would make that much difference, but it's certainly, from being really racy at the beginning and right in the hunt, Jenson is, pretty much well off the pace now. So it's strange. It doesn't quite add up. Whether they've just backed something off once Michael upped his pace, it has to be said, but certainly Jenson's pace went down too.
It did, but it's picking up again now, 122 flat. That's not a bad pace for Jenson Button. Michael Schumacher's last lap of 123.8. He's in traffic. Jenson Button, though, is still second at Imola, and we're at the halfway stage. 62 of the 62-lap San Marino Grand Prix, and you can see there that Ralf Schumacher is ahead of Jarno Trulli. Just made a pit stop, and it was a quick stop, 6.9 seconds by the Renault mechanics, but it seemed to take Trulli quite a long time to get up to speed on the exit of the pit lane. Not quite sure why, what happened, but he fell right into the middle of the Ralf Schumacher-Rubens Barrichello battle and slipped in behind Ralf, but ahead of Rubens, who is now very, very anxious to get past the Renault. So Trulli has dropped a place from 4th to 5th, and Ralf Schumacher promoted 1.
There's nothing wrong with the stop that I could see, as you say, James. I think either he was just too tardy on the way in and to hit the speed limiter line, or maybe he had some kind of drama. We didn't see his full exit from the pits, and it's cost him quite dearly because he was a couple of seconds ahead of that pack. Now he's lost out to one of them and under pressure from the other two. Michael Schumacher's lead, interestingly, after the second stop, went from 17.5 seconds down to 14.6. Button took 3 seconds out of him during the ins and outs and stops, traffic, lapping, whatever it was. And now all of a sudden, Button back on Michael Schumacher's pace.
Yeah, just to bring you up to speed, Jenson Button led the first stint of this Grand Prix from pole position. Made his first pit stop on lap 9. Michael Schumacher then banged in a couple of really fast laps before his own first pit stop and was able to leapfrog Jenson when he came out. He opened out a big lead then in the second stint of the Grand Prix, about 17 seconds, as Martin said. But on this third stint now, Jenson Button seems more comfortable. He's happier with the car and is going a good bit faster than he did in the middle stint. He is in second place behind Michael Schumacher. Montoya is third. Ralf Schumacher is fourth for BMW Williams. 5th, Jarno Trulli. 6th is Barrichello. 7th, Alonso. Tamata there driving through the pit lane. And 7th is Alonso. 8th, Takuma Sato, who was in the first part of this Grand Prix up in 4th place, but lost out through the pit stops in the BAR, sister BAR to Jenson Button's. As the Jordan of Heidfeld exits the pits in 15th place. And news for the Raikkonen fans out there, he was last on the grid. He's now up into 9th place on a completely different strategy from the rest of the field. He's only made 1 pit stop compared to the 2 of all the men in front of him.
And this then is Tamata on his out lap, getting it wrong down at what looked like the Villeneuve chicane from the little bit I saw of it. Tamata making an error on his out lap. So this then is the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th, believe it or not. The Renaults have not been good around here. It's a bit of a bogey circuit for them. And unfortunately, they've not got pace this afternoon, but what's Barrichello doing in the middle of them?
I was just about to say that. I mean, you talk about the Renaults not being all that clever around Imola, but there's a Ferrari in the middle of them, and we've got a Ferrari at the front. Absolutely flying now. Michael Schumacher back into the 1:21 bracket. And here we have Rubens Barrichello. We're riding on board with him now. He has been held up, certainly, I'm sure he'll say that afterwards, by Ralf Schumacher for most of the Grand Prix. He might feel he could have gone a good bit quicker. He was also held up behind Takuma Sato in the early stage of the Grand Prix. How much has it cost him? 44 seconds. That's what he is behind his teammate after just 35 laps of racing.
Sometimes when Rubens, I've said this before, when Rubens' chin goes down, it goes down. Something is not happy in Rubens Barrichello's life or cockpit or whatever at the moment. Since Melbourne, he's not been a challenge for Michael Schumacher, has he?
No, well, as I said before, we're meeting the team this weekend with Minardi. Paul Stoddard joins us again from the Minardi timing stand. And Paul, what was that with Gianmaria Bruni before? Lots of hand gestures when he came into the pits. What's the story?
Basically, James got a locking brake on the right rear, and the boys tried to sort of have a look at it. We took the wheels off, had to go, but there's not much you can do when you're in a race situation. So given that it was brakes, the safest thing to do is sadly retire the car.
We've seen a few cars released by the Lollipop men in front of other cars in the pit lane today. Some of them have been pretty close. What's your thoughts on that? Safe enough?
As you said earlier, it's a very, very tight pit lane here, and even though we're on an 80k speed limit, you can feel them come past you here. So imagine the boys standing. It's pretty hairy.
Okay, what can you do now for Baumgartner down there in 18th? Anything you can do for him down there, Paul? Is there something can he back off? Can he change the revs? What do you got to do just to get him to the end of the Grand Prix?
I think he's had 2 good stops, Martin. All he's got to do now is just hang in there and get it home. For these young guys, it's all about getting experience, and as long as he keeps a clean race, and hopefully he'll profit by the retirements of 1 or 2 others, and hopefully not Jenson.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoyed being with the Minardi team this weekend, getting an insight into what it's like to be this Ferrari, to be Italy's second team. Been down to the Faenza factory, very interesting it was too. And enjoyed our time with the Minardi team this weekend. Gianmaria Bruni, sadly, one of the only 2 retirements so far this afternoon, as we heard, with a brake problem. Also, Giorgio Pantano had a hydraulics problem earlier on in the Grand Prix. We've still got 18 runners, though. Michael Schumacher leads by 16.4 seconds over Jenson Button. He is in turn 18.5 seconds ahead of the BMW Williams of Juan Montoya and his teammate Ralf Schumacher. Renault of Jarno Trulli in 5th. Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello in 6th. Renault of Fernando Alonso in 7th. And Sato 8th. You can see a minute behind race leader Michael Schumacher and a long, long way behind teammate Button. But it's been a strong weekend, certainly up until the race for Takuma Sato.
D'Amato is showing us stop. We saw him bouncing across the gravel trap. We didn't really see the end result of it, but it appears D'Amato is our 3rd retirement. Pantano in the Jordan, Bruni in the Minardi, D'Amato now in the Toyota. 17 runners remaining. Coulthard's 14th of those, and Button up in 2nd place now, 17.4 seconds adrift of Michael Schumacher, but a comfortable 18.5 ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya in 3rd place. Ralf Schumacher and the battle behind him, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, then they're 9 seconds behind 3rd place man Montoya.
Yeah, all lapping around the same sort of pace in the high 1:22s. Jenson Button's pace has slackened off a little bit. The last couple of laps, he's just given away a second to Michael Schumacher in front. We're riding on board, though. You can see the rev counter on the left, the maxing out just under 19,000 RPM.
But I was just going to say, slightly different to that, I noticed they're shifting at about 18.4, probably a little bit lower than I thought they would be, so relatively conservative on the upshift points. That's where the engine, those final few hundred RPM, is where the damage can be done on the engine. So you're talking about at top speed not being too high at all in 7th gear, and also your shift point needs to be just a few hundred. Makes the world of difference for the energy and the masses going on inside.
That's very interesting, isn't it, Martin? Because throughout the first Grand Prix this season, we're now in a formula where you have to make your engine last for an entire Grand Prix weekend, and if you change your engine, you go to the back of the grid. You basically lose 10 places on the grid. And so if you change it after qualifying, you go to the very back of the grid. So we've seen various people saving their engines in practice, perhaps not using them so hard. And here at Imola this weekend, a lot of the cars have done a lot of laps in practice. So clearly they're just, as you say, just being kind to the engines in race day.
Barrichello's much quicker than Trulli, but he just can't do anything about it. Look, he'll gain on him down the pit straight now. He's much faster in a straight line. He just can't seem to get glued to his gearbox and do something about it. There's wonderful sound you can hear from the engines, from the onboard cameras. Much better than you hear as a driver. You've got earplugs in, crash helmet on, the exhaust is, 2 meters behind you or something. And actually, you hear more mechanical noise as a driver coming out of the airbox. You don't hear that lovely, crisp sound that we can hear as fans at the racetrack or from the onboard camera.
Well, Barrichello has been battling with Ralf Schumacher for most of this Grand Prix, but Trulli fed out after the pit stop in front of him, and now that's allowing Ralf Schumacher to get away from Barrichello. As Martin said, the pace of Trulli is not the pace of Barrichello, the true pace, if you like. And you hear that criticism sometimes of Jarno Trulli, don't you? He just lets his pace drop off during the course of a Grand Prix, and I think we're in one of those moments at the moment. He's a good second a lap slower than Ralf Schumacher.
Well, we know he's fit. He ran a half marathon, was it just last weekend? So it's not a fitness thing. I think it must be a mental strength, but no doubt about it. I mean, he has had some stunning races in the last year or so, but he does tend to just fade a little bit. Michael Schumacher on lap 39, leading Jenson Button by 19 seconds.
41 of the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, 22 to go. Michael Schumacher's leading the Grand Prix, but Jenson Button at the moment on target for his best result in Formula One so far. He's been twice on the podium in the last 2 Grand Prix. Can he go one step better? He started from pole position, so some were thinking, including perhaps, dare I say it myself, he might be able to challenge for the win here this afternoon, but the pace of Michael Schumacher and his Ferrari has been too much. There is Jenson Button, going strongly still in second place, but really not able to live with Michael Schumacher in the second and third stints of this Grand Prix. Third is Juan Montoya, fourth Ralf Schumacher, fifth Jarno Trulli, sixth Rubens Barrichello, and seventh Fernando Alonso. And Trulli, Barrichello and Alonso are all stuck together in that battle for fifth, sixth and seventh. It's been a poor afternoon for the McLaren team. David Coulthard is down in 14th. Teammate Kimi Raikkonen is 9th. It's also been a difficult afternoon for Toyota and Jaguar. Toyota 11th with Olivier Panis, and Jaguar 13th with Mark Webber. But the story of the race really, Martin, has been the extraordinary getaway, if you like, of Button and Michael Schumacher at the start. And they have been consistently lapping much faster than anybody else. Montoya, Ralf Schumacher, all the Renaults.
Yep. Class of the field walked away, really. Poor performances from the rest of them in many respects, because they've just not been there to challenge. For some reason, Jenson just dropping away from the pace, as you said, in the second and third stints. Coulthard was 14th, just closing up behind Webber, who's had a similarly disappointing afternoon in 13th, and DC in for his what will be third and, well, might be, yeah, should be final stop, shouldn't it? So at the moment, no McLarens in the points once again. Raikkonen fueled heavily and started at the back of the grid with a new engine, but he's only got up as far as 9th, so that strategy won't work unless he scores a few points. And Raikkonen pits now too for his second time of the afternoon from 9th place, and that is the rear view of the McLaren pit stop.
So there you see Raikkonen. He's on a different strategy from the others this afternoon. They're all stopping 3 times. He's only going to stop twice, so it's not all over yet for Kimi Raikkonen. If he can have a strong run to the flag, the last 20 laps for him, all the people in front of him will need to stop again. So he might come out of here with a point, or possibly even 2 at the end of it.
Now, Michael Schumacher then is just wondering, where are the rest of them? I'll never forget him walking into the press conference before the first race in Melbourne saying, I've got nothing more to prove or to win. I'm just enjoying myself. He has stepped up for me to yet another level this year in terms of his speed and mental approach. Just incredible. I think he's so relaxed in the car. The team are working together. All of the other teams seem to be fighting themselves at one level or another. And with the exception of BAR, it has to be said, and that's probably why they've emerged as the main and only challengers, it has to be said, at the moment. But still, Button 21 seconds adrift on Michael at the moment. Lap 43.
Apropos of which, we've got another email question from Susie Jenkins in Plymouth, who wants to know which tracks, Martin, do you think coming up in the calendar Jenson Button and BAR will be able to challenge the Ferraris on as Takuma Sato makes his pit stop?
Well, they're going to need something to happen that's unusual with weather conditions or what have you. If they're going to beat Michael, his car's working everywhere. He knows every track so well. Maybe Monaco is the chance to try to put one over on Ferrari, where you have a unique situation. Everywhere else, it seems to me that they just have a raw pace and reliability advantage in the Ferrari team.
What about the other teams? What about Williams? Do you see them coming strong soon?
Let's hope so, but you know, they've got to change something, haven't they? At the moment, they can't match them for pace. Montoya just pitted, and he's being shown as 40 seconds behind Michael in 43 laps. A second a lap. That's an eternity in Formula One.
It certainly is. There is Juan Montoya talking about the pace of the car, the development really not quite what it was. Certainly talking to some of the Williams senior management as Rubens Barrichello makes his stop. They say grip is what's lacking in that car. They need it from the aerodynamics and the tyres, and they're hoping to find it in the next few Grand Prix. It's a big push, certainly, from the Williams team to get themselves back to challenging Ferrari. Let's not forget that Suzuka, at the end of last season, they were a couple of tenths of a second a lap faster than the Ferrari. They lost. Ferrari basically took a 1-second jump over the winter, and Williams weren't able to match it.
So, Trulli and Alonso are either going to gain or lose here to Rubens Barrichello. This is crucial. They were nose to tail for 5th, 6th and 7th. It's all about in-laps, pit stops and out-laps. And if your competitor is in the pits, you've got to max out while he's in there. So they're going to have to put some spurts on to get this job done. Barrichello has got a great chance as Button pits for the 3rd time. Ted.
We go, Jensen, right in front of me. Loads of brake dust coming off those wheels. There's no problem with the stop so far. The fuel man is on. They've lowered the car. There he goes. Good one. 8.2. Nice final stop.
That looked very slick indeed. It won't be anything like enough to frighten Michael Schumacher, but it might just close that gap down another time. You never know. The Grand Prix is not over yet. This place is tough on cars as they bounce across those curbs. It's heavy on brakes. There's far enough to go yet to make the difference. Ralf Schumacher pits 2 then at the end of lap 45.
Now remember, he was pulling away from Jarno Trulli and Rubens Barrichello before this stint. So where are the others? There's a Ferrari. Jarno Trulli yet to make his 3rd stop of the afternoon. That'll be the decisive one, because it was Trulli was holding, we believe, Rubens Barrichello up. So this is the time now for Rubens Barrichello, who's just made his stop, to try and put the hammer down and make sure that when Trulli rejoins after his 3rd and final stop, he doesn't rejoin in front of the Ferrari. That will give Rubens the chance to pick up the horses and try and challenge Ralf Schumacher for the remainder of this afternoon. This is the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th, remember. And there is a chance for Rubens to finish 4th if he can have a strong run to the flag. Try and salvage something from his afternoon.
You're on board with the leader. He is on lap 46. And he's still lapping comfortably a record pace, James. Well over a second a lap faster than last year. And there's no pressure on him. You still don't know just potentially how fast that car is, because nobody there to bother him.
Well, look how stable it is. Did you see his right hand leave the steering wheel there, just as he went over the brow of the hill down to Rivazza? He does that every single lap. He's altering the brake balance, because the Rivazza is a downhill corner. They have to brake in a different way, and Michael Schumacher did it yesterday in his qualifying lap, and every time we've been on board with him, he has to do the same thing. It's the amount the driver has to do in input. Here he comes then into the pits for his 3rd and final time this afternoon. Can he make it 4 wins out of 4 to start this 2004 championship?
Just so calmly away, not bundles of revs and wheel spinning and damaging the clutch and drive shafts. Just very casually away, no risk of stalling it, enough revs on for that. And through and out he goes then. Michael Schumacher with no further scheduled stops, brand new set of tyres, a clear and beautiful racetrack in front of him, with the exception of back markers who are duty bound to get out of his way when they see a blue flag. It's looking very good for Michael Schumacher.
Well, funnily enough, the first back marker he's going to come across is teammate of Jenson Button, Takuma Sato, in the BAR Honda. There you can see it climbing up the hill. There is Sato, and there is Michael Schumacher. So strict rules, though, about holding up the leader. If you're a lapped car, you're not allowed to do it. Now, let's see what happens here. This is the Trulli stop that we told you about. Where will he feed back relative to Rubens Barrichello?
Barrichello's been lapping in the 121s and therefore very quickly. And I've got a feeling it's going to look good for the Ferrari. Where is he? He's just coming out of the last corner. But Trulli's got to do 50 miles an hour down the pit straight. No, it hasn't worked out. Barrichello did not get in front of him, but he's closing very, very fast. I wondered if he'd just done enough to clear, and he has not.
So Trulli maintains his position, and the frustration continues for Rubens Barrichello. Not able to do enough in the gap between his own stop and that of Jarno Trulli to make the leap, which is what Michael Schumacher did with Jenson Button. First round of pit stops, but Barrichello unable to match his teammate.
It's a really sick feeling when you come out of the pits and you think you've done it, and then your competitor just cruises past about 150, 160 miles an hour past the end of the pit lane, and you think, oh no, he's the last bloke I wanted to see now. And there you go. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you.
Well, we were looking earlier on this afternoon at the Lotus, 1986 Lotus, with a Renault turbo engine that Ayrton Senna used to race, and that they didn't have refueling in those days. The fuel tank, 220-litre fuel tank, it's been absolutely incredible. This huge thing behind the driver's cockpit between him and the engine, and those were the days.
Yeah, it felt like you were towing a caravan when they filled your car right up like that for the start of a Grand Prix. But that's the unique thing about San Marino, that helicopter shot and other shots you see around the place. We were racing through people's back gardens here. You hear dogs barking, you see people coming home late in the day. It is, it's really on the edge of the town. It's an amazing feeling here. Michael Schumacher's lead now up to 26.5 seconds. Alonso's third, but has to stop again.
Yeah, you can see Barrichello skipping around Baumgartner's Minardi. 3 laps down on the race leader. But still, Minardi battling on, trying to get the car to the finish. And doesn't look as though Barrichello is really making much of an impression on Jarno Trulli. There you can see the pit stop graph. Alonso then the only odd one out, yet to make his third stop of the afternoon. Hasn't challenged quite the way he hoped he would this afternoon. And Raikkonen stalled, it seems, in 9th place, unable to make any more progress than that. He's 11 seconds behind Takuma Sato in the second of the BARs, who's on course for points for the 2nd race in a row. Here's a scrap. This is Webber and Heidfeld battle for 14th and 15th places as Alonso pits.
Was in third, tucked up behind Barrichello before the pit stops, these final series of pit stops finished. Where will he feed back in? I'm looking out of my window. There goes Ralf Schumacher, and he's going to fit in once again just behind Ralf. So, and ahead of Trulli. Was he ahead of? No, that's a position change.
A very significant
that
position
is,
change.
Ahead of Trulli then is good news, and ahead of, therefore, of course, then of Barrichello. So that worked a treat, didn't it?
Certainly did. They rolled the dice strategy-wise with Alonso there. Put some fuel in, obviously, for that longer stint, and it's worked for him. And there we were saying he hadn't really been able to challenge the way we hoped he would, and the way he hoped he would. But, well, that worked for him very, very well indeed. He's leapfrogged the others and is now in 4th place. Michael Schumacher then leads on lap 50 of 62 ahead of Jenson Button, still going strongly in 2nd place with Montoya, Alonso, Ralf Schumacher and Trulli. the final stint of the San Marino Grand Prix. That's Kimi Raikkonen, currently running in 9th place. Michael Schumacher is leading the Grand Prix. Jenson Button is still second in the BAR Honda. We've lost Nick Heidfeld, who's just pulled off the racetrack with smoke pouring out of the back of his car, I should say.
But earlier, Alonso and Ralf Schumacher, just after Alonso's pit stop, getting together down in Tosa. Alonso trying an opportunist move, was not really far enough up alongside Ralf. He would not have seen him over the very high headrest they have in Formula One cars now. Clearly was not looking in his mirror and just tips him around. Ralf Schumacher recovered from that, but is now down in 7th place. No apparent damage to the car, and Alonso up into 4th, Trulli 5th, Barrichello 6th, Ralf Schumacher down the field. I think it wasn't quite far enough alongside Alonso, but had to have a go, and you have to have another sense to know what's going on in your mirrors, and Ralf quite clearly was not looking in them. And as I said, Alonso wasn't far enough alongside him. I don't think it was the same situation as Sato and Ralf back in Bahrain, where Sato was completely alongside him. This one was coming in from 3/4 rear angle, and you can't always see that car. And the race you're also seeing back with Raikkonen and Fisichella's for position. Fisichella's putting Raikkonen under pressure. This is a lapped David Coulthard then. He's down in 13th place, and the McLarens are lapping in the 24s now. Michael Schumacher has now backed off to the 24s. The next man for him to lap was Rubens Barrichello. His teammate was the next man in Michael Schumacher's sights. He's about 20 seconds behind him on the racetrack, therefore a minute ahead of him, effectively in the Grand Prix. And now, of course, it's his brother who's the next target to be lapped. Ralf Schumacher down in 7th, the last unlapped runner.
Yeah, Michael's lapped everybody up to 7th in the 53 laps of this Grand Prix so far. He leads Button, Montoya is 3rd, Alonso 4th, 5th is Jarno Trulli, 6th Rubens Barrichello, and 7th Ralf Schumacher. Barrichello and Trulli, though, a terrific scrap still to be played out.
Catch a load of this. I mean, Alonso, although he didn't really show up because he was coming from the back of the field with dramas, Alonso put in a stunning drive back in Bahrain at the last Grand Prix, and now he's been released up. He's in 4th. He's just 3.6 seconds down on Montoya. That's the next fight you're going to see as Alonso starts homing in on Juan Pablo Montoya, taking tenths out of him per sector and best part of 3/4 second per lap in this last few laps. So Alonso sniffing a podium out there.
Certainly is. He's going like the clappers at the moment. Started 6th in this Grand Prix, Fernando Alonso, but said he had a good race car under him. Got a bit caught up in a train behind Takuma Sato at the start of the Grand Prix, but he managed to get clear of Trulli, his teammate, and Ralf Schumacher as well through the pit stop sequence, and now challenging for a podium is Alonso. Juan Montoya started 3rd. He still is 3rd. And Jenson Button started on pole, led the opening stint of this Grand Prix quite comfortably from Michael Schumacher. Terrific scrap between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya on the opening lap. They were up on the grass, Montoya's wheels on the grass. Then Ralf Schumacher got involved as well. He was on the grass too. A very dynamic opening lap, which played into Jenson Button's hands, gave him almost 3 seconds lead at the end of lap 1. He maintained a lead until the first round of pit stops, but Schumacher just too strong on the day for Button to do anything about in race pace, and he's been comfortable in 2nd place, unchallenged by anyone behind him, and so easily the 2nd fastest man on the racetrack here this afternoon.
Yes, no doubt about that, but Michael Schumacher has now backed off significantly, so he's only doing the same pace as the rest of them, which just about sums up his performance this afternoon, I think. Schumacher 26.6 seconds clear of Button. Montoya 24 seconds behind Jenson Button. Button's done a good job. Michael Schumacher's done a brilliant job. And can Alonso catch Montoya? And if he can he pass him? There's not many laps to go, 8 laps to go, as you can see at the top of your screen. But Alonso certainly looking pacey enough to do it, but Montoya has responded to that gap that was closing. It is 3.4, and at the moment they're neck and neck on this current lap in terms of the pace, that is.
Well, Jenson Button's been very strong this afternoon. He's still running in 2nd place, and I imagine his father John has calmed down a little bit, Louise.
Definitely good news for John's ticker. John, you said to me earlier on that you were feeling a bit disappointed with second place after the first couple of laps. You still feeling like that, or you'd be quite happy to take it?
It's crazy. I still feel disappointed, but we've got to look back. We've had 2/3, a pole in qualifying, and hopefully a second here. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's maybe expecting a little bit too much, too soon.
Is that a measure of the improvements that the team have made, though? I mean, you're now expecting poles, you're expecting wins.
Well, yeah, they are expecting more, and the mood in the pit garage exactly the same. Everyone's like really, really quiet. They want more, which is fantastic.
Do you think Jensen will feel like you? If he finishes this race second, is he going to be upset?
Oh, when you get up on that podium, it's a different thing. That lifts you again, and I'm sure we're going to get covered in champagne again.
Cheers, John.
Fingers crossed it's not over yet.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I think Jensen, he said, yeah, third was great, but actually I was only 95% happy when we interviewed him on F1 ITV. And he said, there's 2 more steps. Well, he will have taken one of those. What he'll be disappointed about, James, is until Michael's really started backing off now, is that best part of half-minute gap. That's what he'll be disappointed about, not at the second place.
Yeah, 24.5 seconds it is at the moment between Michael Schumacher and Jenson Button. Button led the early stages, though, looked very, very comfortable, but you always felt that Michael had more pace. This, though, the scrap between Jarno Trulli and Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello's had a frustrating afternoon, parked up behind various different cars at various stages. Good scrap with Ralf Schumacher earlier on. Can he get ahead of Jarno Trulli in the remaining 7 laps? This is the battle for 5th place, and just ahead of them, only 3 seconds up the road, is Fernando Alonso, who's trying to close down and catch Juan Montoya. So we might have a little concertina in the final part of this Grand Prix between Montoya, Alonso and Trulli, and Barrichello as well in the mix. Just going past the Toyota there. They've had a disappointing afternoon, Toyota. Olivier Panis is down in 12th place. Cristiano De Mata retired some time ago as Barrichello gets very close to the back of Trulli.
Down into the wonderful Aqua Mineral. It's so bumpy on the way in. It's definitely one at a time through there. That's not an overtaking zone. But Rubens Barrichello must feel he spent the entire afternoon looking at the back of a Formula One car. He's always had more pace than the car in front, but just can't do anything about it. Barrichello down in 6th.
So is that bad luck, or is that just not being in the right place at the right time, I wonder? Certainly Rubens started this season very, very strongly. In Australia, he was on the same pace as his teammate Michael Schumacher, literally a few hundredths of a second between them in every session. But since then, Schumacher just seems to have stretched out. He seems to enjoy this car more. I've tried to find out why from talking to various people. It seems this Ferrari is a more edgy car. The 2003 car was more stable. Barrichello was able to really drive it, feel comfortable in it. This car is more difficult to drive, more edgy, and Michael Schumacher's clearly more confident in it, and that's really coming out now.
Well, it's shorter wheelbase again, isn't it? And you always get a more lively car when you do that. And maybe that's played back into the hands of Michael. Rubens there still tucked up behind Jarno Trulli. Schumacher, Ralf, that is, in 7th, is now 16 seconds behind them after he got tipped out by Alonso. And there you can see that is the investigation that will be after the race. They've changed it by and large this year. They can still give you a penalty if you're clearly guilty during the race, but now they can look at it afterwards, fine you or give you further penalties rather than interrupt. So when the fans leave the circuit or switch off their TV, they know the result. It shouldn't change. There's nothing worse than reading on a Monday morning the result's not what you thought you saw on a Sunday afternoon. No, what's that? That's a BAR of who in the smoke? Which BAR is that? Nobody can tell us. I think it's Sato's helmet, isn't it? He looks a little fella that's got out of that. It is Sato.
Oh dear, first signs of Honda fallibility then here at Imola. News of that will be reaching Jenson Button via his radio, and I'm sure they'll be saying you've got 22 seconds in the pocket over Montoya. Please don't push too hard in these remaining 5 laps. There might be a little bit of oil on the track down there as well where Sato has blown up. Well, you saw Honda lost a few engines last season, but this year so far it's been 100% reliability. They've brought both cars to the finish in all 3 Grand Prix, but here in Imola, their first retirement for Sato. A real shame for him because he was on for points this afternoon. And look how hard Barrichello's trying.
Now Barrichello still with a point to prove there, but now they've got to get Jenson, as you suggested, James, to just back off 1,000 revs, change gear 1,000 revs earlier, get it to the end. You can't win it. The gap's coming down because Michael's just swanning around now, having fun out there. But Jensen's got to back off too. He's got a 22-second cushion over Montoya in third, and it's just get out of the revs.
Well, one man who doesn't need to be told about bad luck and engines is Kimi Räikkönen, who has yet to get off the mark points-wise this season. But Sato's retirement means he is on target now for his first World Championship point in 8th place for the McLaren driver. Finally, then, he's going to get off the mark. And Ted has some news for us on Ralf Schumacher.
Well, yes, about Ralf Schumacher. Do you remember he had a warning in Bahrain when he collided into Sato. He had a warning as to his future behaviour, so it's interesting to see what the stewards will make of his crash with Alonso. But just on Sato, wasn't it in Malaysia, James, when Sato blew up just before Jensen had his first podium? They'll be telling Jensen now to back off everything. Let's see what happens to his lap times.
Well, his lap times have gone down to 1:28.5, some 7 seconds slower than he was running early in the race. That's probably a bit too much backing off there. The team will be saying, hey, no, a little bit quicker than that. We didn't mean it quite that much, but it does often. It's surprisingly difficult to back off and get your target time about right when you're losing several seconds per lap. So Jensen, I think, will have to pick that one back up a bit, but he has clearly settled, and obviously for second place, and nurse his car home after his teammate spectacularly blew up.
Well, who can blame him? If you told Jensen Button a year ago you'll be second behind Michael Schumacher in the San Marino Grand Prix, it'll be your third podium of the season, you'd take that, wouldn't you? Some hint of disappointment possibly, having started in pole, but on the day Michael Schumacher just had the better race pace. Here we go then, 3 laps to go in this Grand Prix, and Rubens Barrichello going to try and remind the Tifosi that he also drives a Ferrari and that he can challenge as well. His teammate is serenely on his way towards victory number 4 of the season, but Barrichello badly wants to pass this car, Jarno Trulli, and get 5th place here this afternoon.
Yeah, but it's not the scrap we should be looking at. Alonso now just 7/10 behind Montoya. The pair of them are really pushing hard too. Easily the fastest cars on the track now. Alonso's just done his fastest lap of the entire 59 so far, and homing in on the back of Juan Pablo Montoya. There is the fight I'm talking about. Just a few tenths between them. But as I said before, getting there is one thing, getting past is altogether a different job with Montoya, as we saw when he pushed his teammate clean on the grass in the first lap of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, stewards didn't want to take a look at any of that, did they? That was side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel action up on the grass. So it's just the incident with Ralf Schumacher and Alonso they want to look at, and as Martin was saying, a number of penalties can be applied, but they're future penalties, and Max Mosley, the FIA president, introducing a very sensible measure there, which I think has definitely improved things. Certainly you don't want to go home wondering why the positions had changed. Can Alonso then get past Montoya? This is for the final podium position, and remember, in Bahrain 2 weeks ago, Montoya was on target for 3rd place, and then a gearbox gremlin meant he lost everything and finished 13th, crawled across the finish line. Here again in the closing stages, is he to be cruelly denied another podium finish?
Just 6/10 now, and unfortunately, as well, I was talking about earlier on, it's now Alonso in that turbulent air that's been worked so hard over the surfaces of the Williams in front of him. And, well, I have to say, that doesn't look like an overtaking opportunity to me, unless Montoya makes a mistake. So Montoya pretty much with the podium in his pocket, unless he does something silly here. Michael Schumacher then. On lap 61, the gap just 16 seconds. Jensen went from a 28 to a 23, overcompensated, and now back to a 24. Of course, we don't know if there's debris on the track or back markers that may interfere with that, as we haven't seen those laps. But at the moment, Jensen's now stabilised his pace somewhere pretty sensible, as has Michael Schumacher up front.
Meanwhile, Alonso and Montoya are lapping in the 1:21s, which is the kind of pace Michael Schumacher used earlier on to inflict the damage and put him in the position to win this Grand Prix. So at the very end, both Montoya and Alonso finding tremendous pace in their cars. But Michael Schumacher looking comfortable if he can, 1 lap to go. This will give him 40 World Championship points out of 40, the strongest imaginable start to a World Championship season, particularly when your rival Kimi Räikkönen is only today getting his first point of the championship.
The Piratella corner, all cambered and grippy and nice these days. Used to be a monstrous thing to get around when it was bumpy and tricky curves on the exit. Acca Minerali still a wonderful challenge in a Formula One car, cresting towards the Variante Alta that's pitched so many drivers this weekend into the wall, and Schumacher somehow hanging on to it on his qualifying lap to be on the front of the grid. He was still, despite all of that arm locking and waving stuff on his qualifying, still quicker than Barrichello in this final sector. Just an amazing drive in qualifying, not quite amazing enough to beat Jenson Button, and heading towards then his 74th victory, James.
Yeah, a man very, very much on top of his game. 4 wins in a row for Michael Schumacher, a record 6th San Marino Grand Prix victory. And he has won more Grand Prix than Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell put together. An extraordinary statistic from a man who keeps on breaking the rules. And the familiar signals there of joy from Schumacher. Jenson Button has crossed the line. He's definitely finishing in 2nd place. And here is the scrap. Montoya is 3rd. There he is. 4th is Alonso. Trulli and Barrichello. Who's going to get it? Barrichello, is he going to have a late lunge? No, he's not. And they cross the line then, 5th and 6th. And Barrichello just didn't have anything quite to offer at the very end. Alonso couldn't get past Juan Montoya and settled for 4th place. And there is the closest that Rubens was able to come down at the Rivazza. A very, very good look at the back of the Renault gearbox, but he decided that caution was a better part of valour. Montoya congratulating Michael Schumacher. Who's your driver of the day, Martin?
I want to say Jenson Button, but I think he'll find ways of believing he would have been quicker in the after the first stint. Michael Schumacher has to be the driver of the day. Just stunningly brilliant compared to his teammate, of course. And Louise is with BAR boss David Richards.
David, this is getting to be a bit of a habit, but a very nice habit, I'm happy to say.
Yeah, I hope so. Another step forward, 2nd place this time. Michael just a bit too quick for us today, but there's always Barcelona in a few weeks.
There was none of there are none of the jubilant scenes that we saw at the last 2 races. You're getting to expect this now, are you?
No, you never expect it. You can't do that in motor racing, but certainly the team's getting used to being right up the front now, and hopefully that will continue for the rest of the season.
Once again, very bad luck for Takuma right at the end. Did that give you any concerns for Jenson's reliability?
Well, we did back off the engine towards the end, just backed off the revs. He had a very good margin on Montoya, so it wasn't a big problem at that stage.
So you were always sure he was going to make it to the finish?
Well, you're never quite certain, but, you know, very confident. Honda in general being very reliable engine, so not an issue.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Well done indeed to the BAR team. They are now 3rd equal in the World Championship with Williams on 27 points. Just 4 behind Renault, who scored today, with Alonso and Trulli 4th and 5th, keeping them 2nd in the Constructors behind the runaway leaders Ferrari. And Jenson Button also now just at 1 point behind Rubens Barrichello.